There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't always come with silence. It hides behind the everyday, behind the polite smile, the "I'm fine," the scrolling through conversations you're not part of. It's not the emptiness of being physically alone. It's the hollow space that comes from realizing that no one really knows you. The world keeps moving, loud and fast, but your life feels muted, like you're watching it through glass. You laugh when you should, speak when expected, and yet something deep inside stays untouched, unseen. People assume that having no friends means disinterest or isolation, but often it's the opposite. It's the result of feeling everything too deeply. You read the room too well. You sense the distance before it's spoken. And somewhere along the way, you start retreating, not because you hate people, but because being unseen hurts more than being alone. People often assume that those who have no friends are detached, cold, or disinterested in connection. But that assumption misses something deeply human, the quiet complexity that hides behind that stillness. Because sometimes people who live without friends are not avoiding the world, they're recovering from it. Each silence, each distance, is a scar shaped by experience. The absence of friendship isn't always a decision. Sometimes it's a slow unraveling, the result of countless small disappointments that taught the mind to seek safety in solitude. It begins subtly. Maybe you shared something real once, something that mattered, and it was met with laughter, indifference, or judgment. Maybe you trusted the wrong person and felt your vulnerability used against you. Or maybe over the years, people came and went so easily that your heart simply stopped believing in permanence. You learn slowly that connection is not always safety, that sometimes the people who claim to understand you are only there for the version of you that doesn't feel too heavy. So you start to shrink, not visibly, but internally. You stop speaking first. You stop explaining yourself. You stop hoping someone will ask the second question, the one that means they really want to know you. And in that shrinking, something begins to change. Solitude becomes less of a wound and more of a routine. You tell yourself it's peace, but deep down, it's just the absence of risk. Psychologists often talk about the brain's need for social connection, how isolation triggers the same pain centers as physical harm. The brain doesn't distinguish between emotional rejection and a cut to the skin. Both hurt. Both warn the system that something vital is missing. But over time, when rejection repeats itself, the mind adapts. It learns avoidance as protection. You stop reaching out not because you don't care, but because you care too much. Because every unanswered message, every moment of being forgotten, reinforces the belief that you're better off keeping your thoughts to yourself. And then, loneliness evolves. It becomes quieter, more intelligent, almost deceptive. From the outside, you might seem fine, stable, busy, even content. You post pictures, you go to work, you smile when needed, but beneath that surface is an ache that doesn't shout anymore. It whispers. It lingers in the moments between distractions. It visits when the noise dies down, reminding you that no matter how full your day is, your life still feels empty in all the invisible corners.
The psychology of this kind of loneliness is complex. When you go long enough without emotional mirroring, without someone reflecting back your thoughts, your humor, your humanity, your sense of self begins to fade. You start doubting your worth, not because you think you're bad, but because you can't see yourself clearly anymore. The brain, deprived of external reflection, turns inward, replaying memories, conversations, and regrets like a loop. You begin living in your head, where every interaction becomes an echo chamber of self-analysis and fear. There's also a phenomenon called social self-concept distortion, where your mind starts to imagine how others see you based on past rejection. You assume disinterest where there is none. You overanalyze tone, pauses, and silences. Even kindness can feel suspicious. Your nervous system, trained to predict loss, starts rejecting connection before it can hurt you. That's the paradox. Loneliness convinces you that isolation is safety, but that very safety keeps you trapped in pain. And yet, beneath all this, there's an extraordinary sensitivity. People who have no friends often see more than they're given credit for. They notice the way someone's eyes change when they're lying. They pick up on the tremor in a voice that hides sadness. They sense rejection before it happens because their minds have become fluent in subtlety. It's not cynicism, it's intuition sharpened by survival. But that same awareness can be exhausting. When you see everything, you can't unsee it. Every half-hearted gesture, every delayed reply feels heavier, so you retreat again, convincing yourself that you don't need what you crave. You build routines around independence, working late, reading alone, walking the same quiet paths. You start to find meaning in solitude, but even meaning can't replace the warmth of being understood. Over time, something shifts inside. Your internal dialogue becomes your primary companion. You speak to yourself, kindly some days, cruelly on others. You recall old friendships, old laughter, wondering if you were ever really known or just tolerated. It's not self-pity, it's self-reflection intensified by silence. The more time you spend alone, the more your mind becomes both your comfort and your cage. And yet, not all of this is tragedy. There's a strange kind of beauty in the way isolation teaches awareness. Some of the most emotionally intelligent, creative, and observant people in the world grew from years of solitude. Because solitude, when it stops being punishment, becomes a mirror. It shows you the raw parts of yourself, the parts that were once covered by noise. It forces honesty. It forces depth. But the difference between healing solitude and harmful isolation lies in choice. Chosen solitude strengthens, forced solitude breaks. The first reconnects you to yourself. The second convinces you that you're unworthy of being known. Many people who have no friends live somewhere between those two states, half healing, half hiding. They tell themselves they're fine being alone, and sometimes they truly are. But other times, that sentence is just armor disguised as acceptance. Still, beneath all the quiet and withdrawal, there remains a flicker, a small human desire that refuses to die. The desire to be seen without performing, to be heard without having to prove worth. The need for a connection that feels effortless, honest, safe. It's not gone. It's only waiting for the moment when courage becomes stronger than fear, when trust feels less like risk and more like relief. Because in the end, the psychology of people who have no friends isn't about coldness or disinterest. It's about protection. It's about minds that learn to survive without validation, hearts that adapted to silence, and souls that, despite everything, still hope quietly that someone, somewhere, might finally see them as they are. Loneliness isn't a permanent sentence. It's a season, a slow teacher that shapes the way you see yourself. Having no friends doesn't make you broken. It means you've carried silence longer than most. But silence can become sacred when you learn to listen to it. The day you start treating yourself with the kindness you've been waiting for from others, everything begins to shift. Real connection starts inside, when you stop hiding from your own depth, because the truth is, you were never unworthy of friendship. You were simply learning how to become your own first friend.